So good evening, everyone. I am Charlize Lewis. I'm the Executive Director of Louisville Literary Arts, and welcome to our November InKY reading. Tonight, we have two very, what's the word I want to use? Involved readers tonight. They're involved in their craft, but they have been involved with LLA, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But I do want to call your attention to the link that is in the chat. If you want to become a member of Louisville Literary Arts, or you want to support us with a donation, the link is there for you. And if you want to follow us on social media, we are on almost all social media at Lou Literary Arts, at Lou Literary Arts. And so tonight, I want to introduce our very first reader. Hey, Eric Shoemaker.
Hey.
This is my first time officially meeting Eric in what we call the virtual person-to-person, face-to-face, because we have been on email for several months and we have not actually, been in this type of conversation where we see each other. So I just want to introduce him first. He's going to be our first reader tonight. And so we're going to go by your government name, Robert Eric Shoemaker. That's right.
That's perfect. Yep.
Yes. I would get emails and I would be like, who is Robert? Is he related to Eric? But he is Robert Eric Shoemaker, and he's a poet and interdisciplinary artist. Eric holds an MFA in creative writing and poetics from Naropa University, and he's a candidate in the PhD Humanities program at the University of Louisville. Eric's work focuses on magical poetics. Did I get that right?
You did.
Okay, magical poetics, public history, and gender sexuality. He's published 3 books of hybrid poetry, memoir, and playwriting. And he's going to talk a little bit about his work and where he is in the journey. And I know when we've gone back and forth, he said, I'm so busy. I'm trying to finish my PhD. I'm trying to get this book done. And he just released a recent work. And so, Eric, kudos to you to be able to do all that at once. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to let you just share with us and everybody. He's going to be on here for about 20-25 minutes, and then we'll allow you to have some reaction to it.
Cool. So yeah, thanks, Charlize, and I'm glad to be reading with y'all. So I'll talk a little bit about the book itself to begin with. I'm going to share some pictures here. So let's see. The book is called Cavanezia, and it came out of a journalism project that I did with the Pulitzer Center on Crisis Reporting. They sent me to Venice, Italy to interview people and write journalism articles about the connection between artisanship and climate change. And the book itself came out, years later out of that research and out of the creative work that I did around this idea of people in a sort of a city on the water, a city like so much a part of the water also, and how the tide is influenced by climate change, but also tourism and also people moving away. So the book is sort of an amalgam of all of those things. And this came out this year. So this is my second reading of the book. So I hope you like it. I'm gonna dive into the book. Not like that. Let's see if I can get this PowerPoint going. There we go. This poem is called 39 Winters. Our land is on the cusp of winter, a fantasy speech, as if the verge of science could provoke our death. I ride the tide out of my depth. I till the island, fish the marshes. I let someone else try crazy Moses. We reread the myth, but never look for Moses. We do not know word nor weather winter, no sand on snow, nor ice in marshes. But we feel a wave is on the verge of driving us out of our depth, whether driving us to our death. Surrounded by need, surrounded by death, I cry the sky to send down Moses, to dry this tide, to sweep this depth. Our fruit won't grow when it is winter, so we bail the water from the verge. We plan to dry away our marshes. My children never knew the marshes. The lake has taken them, formed their death in runoff, raising up the verge. No hope for prophets, God nor Moses. I just may know the name of winter right outside my doorstep's depth. My ancestral home swallowed in depth. I saved a photo of the marshes in snow, the harbinger of sensual winter. Surrounded by corpses comes love or death. Call it shepherd, call it Moses, for a people clinging to the verge. Daughter and I rose from the verge to take us out, right through the depth. Call me shepherd, call her Moses, parting dreams and flooded marshes. We're all upon the cusp of death. I know it's time to leave this winter. Nothing lives there. Empty the marshes. Only silver bellies encased by death. And that land once on the cusp of winter. So that sequence is central to the book's narrative and sort of advances the clock on the book. The book starts in a play sequence that was written sort of contemporaneously with me being in Venice. And then 39 Winters happens, and there's a sort of futuristic predictive piece about what Venice will become. And so that predicts where climate change is going to take us, like this poem does. And then after that, there's a section on the different artisans that I met in Venice, and that's what I'm going to be reading from now. This is a prose section, actually. I wrote a bunch of memoir for this book, and it rehashes some of the themes and ideas and even the characters from earlier in the book. So when you're reading it, you see people come up a couple different times in different iterations, and it sort of compounds how you feel about them, what you think about them. So this section is from Artigiani di Venezia, and it's called Cicchetti, and I'll just read a couple bits from this. The first thing you need to know to understand this story is that there are two Giardini stops, one for the Biennale and one for the main drag of the Giardini, which leads to Via Garibaldi. If I hadn't mistaken one for the other, I wouldn't have run into my contact, Claudia, and would have spent another half hour searching for her, high and low, through the mobs of tourists that plague the seafront. You really have to see it to believe it. The Navi spilling thousands of tourists at a time out onto the city, so they can gawk and walk and not buy anything Venetian. As luck had it, I found Claudia and spoke with her about the plights of the people. One of the first things she related was that tourists aren't the biggest problem. I'll admit I was surprised to be mistaken about that. The biggest problem, according to Claudia, is the size of Venice, the tiny, impossible size of this city stuck in a fake reality, as she puts it, stuck in a time before cars and before Wi-Fi, stuck in the Doge's Venetian empire, as it were, sea-bound and magnificent. We discussed the time when the city was flooded with more than 200,000 residents, not tourists, who must have made this a happening place. Now, at fewer than 60,000 residents, the buzz isn't the same. Where are the Venetians? Mestre, Claudia says, on the mainland. The young Venetians leave because there are no good jobs for their generation here. They cannot afford a house here. They cannot enjoy the normal comforts of Italian living either. You have to escape, she says. For the first time for 1 or 2 years, you're very happy in Venice, and then you want out. So why are there still any Venetians here? I asked. I imagine the answer to be stubbornness or not wanting to change. Laziness was Claudia's response. No longer surprised with the grim tone of Claudia's complaints, I began to check out of the conversation a bit, lest I become angry and begin a debate I surely could not win. To be told that no one in Venice stayed because they believed in it infuriated me. This wasn't my city, but it was someone's, and I'm sure they wouldn't appreciate being called lazy, complacent. Claudia insisted, as I later found out, that there are hideaway places that Venetians haunt, like sailor ghosts in the cabin, drinking and eating their small cicchetti to their heart's content. I later found one filled with elderly, wraith-like people drifting in and out with their cafe or vino and not lingering. There were no young people, as Claudia said. The residents who seem to have stayed in Venice were aged, possibly stubborn or complacent, or some adjective Claudia would also agree on. But as with many visions of ghost towns, even in economically suffering portions of the United States, there must be more to the story, or so I forced myself to believe as I hunted for it. I disagree with many of the things Claudia said, including that tourism isn't a major problem in Venice. Many other small Italian cities thrive because of their tourism. Venice doesn't thrive because of the type of tourist that visits and their expectations of the city. On the whole, they're not there to marvel at the history or the architecture or the culture or to learn even, but rather to glance at the most well-known sites and eat the tourist stomach food. Venice's size is a problem for people like Claudia, who, as she said, get tired of the city and want to move away. There aren't as many opportunities for younger people to get involved in the wider world, and traditional artisanal crafts don't seem as interesting to them. People like Claudia leave Venice. Other people do not. The flip side presented itself as an Italian bookbinder whom I had intended to interview when I embarked on my Venetian journalism project. Paolo Olbi, an aged man himself, but with a vital light shimmering in his eyes and glowing from his hands, led me into a dimly lit and low-ceilinged shop. It was full of locals chatting on their lunch break, which can range from 2 to 3 hours each day. Most of these Venetians were his age, 70 or more, but engaged, maybe even happy, not ghostly at all. This was a bar full of cicchetti and full of life. Maybe it was the only one left. After having more than enough pre-lunch wine with Paolo and his friend translator Romeo, we traveled to a small but very fancy restaurant called Fiorentino in the Rialto. Paolo greeted the owner with a familiar hug and said something about eating lunch inside, which was deserted due to the strange hour. We sat and were treated to one of the best meals I had in Venice, and possibly one of the best of my life. I don't know what we ate, since Paolo ordered it for me, but I didn't question anything, even when it looked like a trout-sized shrimp. We had more wine. I was feeling rather intoxicated by this hour in the visit. We passed the time by exchanging vaguely worded questions through Romeo, who was himself a bookseller. I discovered that Paolo was hoping to ask for space from locals, some Armenians who owned Casa Novio nearby. One day in the near future, he said, he's going to the island of the Armenians to ask about the palazzo, and I am going with him. I didn't know what he meant by Armenians. Maybe he didn't know how else to identify them, but I'd found my story, at least the first one. Paolo taught me that there are still Venetians in Venice, and they're struggling to keep their version of the city afloat. Now I'll read one more section from this, I think. This is Paolo's Armenians. It wasn't until we reached the island that I realized just what I'd gotten myself into. The Armenian island was almost entirely a walled monastery, and Paolo was trying to find the priest in charge. With my video camera, I stuck out. Paolo excused himself from Romeo and me so he could go talk with someone. I pictured Paolo animatedly chiding a monk in front of a chapel. So Romeo and I tagged along on a guided tour of the island for nearly 2 hours. The Armenians are the keepers of a good portion of Venetian history, including a very impressive library of books and materials hand-printed in the lagoon. I fell into this library headfirst and stayed under for quite some time. Despite the beauty in the archives, I couldn't help but wonder what was happening in that cloistered room with Paolo and his padre as I surveyed forgotten frescoes. Did Paolo's fate rest on one man's shoulders? And was I being too dramatic? Romeo and I raced out of the monastery after the tour to see a contented Paolo, who told Romeo that the priest was happy to talk to his superior about the space. I was a bit disappointed that it ended there, but Paolo was ecstatic to finally have some sort of development. In a fit of euphoria, Paolo added that we should see another room in the monastery before we left, and he led us into a darkened corridor full of metallic gleams. The machinery in that room was immense, beautiful, not in use. Against the walls, in cases surrounding us, was printing equipment, letterpress machinery, movable type, covetable relics from a bygone artisanal era. There were drawers of type in every font, monotype machines, presses, cutters, even hot presses for leather. Rounding a corner, I saw that Paolo was leaning against one machine, unorthodox behavior to touch the exhibits. These were mine, Paolo said. He explained that he gave the piece away to the monastery when he closed his last workshop. The Armenians were the people who agreed to take care of his machines, those beasts he so wanted to teach a young apprentice how to operate. He slid his fingers across the machine's black exterior, his hands remembering the feel of the handle. Paolo lost his normally stoic face, and his expression turned despairing, nostalgic, trapped. And I'll stop with the memoir there. Also, I didn't take track of my time. Charlize, do I have time to read a poem, or am I nearing my time?
No, you have time.
Okay, yay. All right, so I'll just read a little bit from this poem play sequence that is the title piece of the book. So this bit is what opens the book that I referenced earlier. So Paolo actually comes up again in this sequence, but he's sort of a more fictionalized version of himself. I'm going to read from a part near the end that I feel like kind of pairs nicely with the memoir piece I just read. Your voice alights on my arm hair, a whiff of cigar smoke, caramel and ghostly. Cities die, let them. Black thing to say. I patter around it as you swell. Graces and fits filled her once, leaning, trailing wisps filtering down waning streets. What would your Venice look like? The via has never been so desperate as when first I conjured your face from the gloom of the bridge, filling the air above these cobbles with silhouettes, hiding me from us and quelling my mooning. I don't have the taste for it, but you blind your ears and with encompassing hands offer up. Not the Adriatic can know this. It is a song. It is a simple melody. They watch us, Wagner and his enemy, bound in the embrace of the garden where we neck on Saint Helena. But cities die, let them, rings in my dark struckness, as your arm, lean with want, wraps around me and we lean in for one more chord. Walk me home, take me home. And after? The via feels as desperate as ever beneath bardic feet, and to my moonstruck eyes, while cities die, let them, clouds my thoughts, and you descend into the conjurations of my fantasy. Let me count the parts. 1 for Dorsoduro, half for San Marco, 2 for Giardini, Murano is out, Burano none, and Torcello left the fold centuries ago. Your islands centrifuged, the reaction compromised, opposites collide, neutrons establish a nothingless void. Once the proton of the high seas or the wayward electron fleeing the Vandals, your interatomic permissions have gone skyward, your energy is spent. Oh, Venezia, you've taken the worst of hits. Old age, dragging one down to rest with unwitting fingers. You are in every aspect my muse this day, but I grew up in mech yards and junk heaps, a spirit city dog at heart. I pulled the teeth of cattle and jumped metal fence pastures. I am myself countrykin, loam life. Or am I for this moment Venetian? Kindred with your skeletal compatriots as they wander in broken armadas, porters leading the way to Ca Venezia, Detroit of the Renaissance world. I do not sing your graces, but your oil and sludge dumpsters, those liquefacted veins pumping in the new century. You've seen slum children eat bread dropped by crows. The pigeon folk here do the same. These parts add up to one broken machina, one celebratedly dysfunctional whole. But the lagoon cannot decide. Drown in bay or dry at Mestre. Most of your beggars go, Venice, desert Atlantis. Will your dregs be stopped up by beach towels? Knock off the eave if you can. 10 points a pigeon, 10 more the nest. This dream of Venice is a single time bomb set when the last and latest swoops to devour you. One explosion and no more Istrian Pine Island whatevers. It was the flood, it was the sea, it was economics, it was slow death, it was the plague, it was emigrants, it was immigrants. One explosion to do you in. Rome of Adriatica, you are in every excellence my muse this day, and this tourist himself will explode first. Thanks.
Thank you, Eric. Okay, so I gotta ask here. Let me see that page where you said it was the explosion. I want to
Oh,
see
the
it.
last one? Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see that.
Yeah, so this book is like, it's laid out kind
Oh,
of
I
the
like
way that
that.
I read it sometimes. So the book itself is an artist book, and the publisher designed it thinking of it as an object like that. So there's like watercolors throughout it, other visual
Yeah.
art. There's some pretty insane layout stuff in here. Like some of it's upside down or sideways. It's
Eric, do
really,
you draw? Do you draw?
yeah, I did the visual art for this. I did the watercolors.
Oh, wow, that's
In it
beautiful.
too. Yeah, some crazy typography stuff. So yeah, thanks for asking.
Love it. I think you have a comment or two in the chat
Yeah, let me look at it.
from Sally Evans. She said, "Thank you, Eric. That was amazing."
Thanks, Sally. I appreciate it.
I enjoyed that.
Thank you.
So we're to our next reader, Dr. Julia Royston. And let me say this. When I first met Dr. Royston, she does not even remember when she met me. And it was at a conference, and you had all of your books and your table, everything up. Do you remember that?
No. Where were we? Was I in Lexington?
At Reverend Angela's conference.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm going to read her bio. Yeah, you don't
have
remember.
a thing where I say, because I meet so many people, I'm like, make me know you. That's my thing. People are like, I'm so sorry, I don't remember. And I was like, no, make me know you. Because when you travel as much as I do, you make me know you. Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah. And
Okay,
I have
so
way
I'm going to
more books than I
read.
had then.
I'm going to read a piece of your bio. Okay.
Okay.
So it says Julia Royston spends her days doing what she loves: writing, publishing, speaking, and coaching others to write and monetize their messages to the world, helping you get your message to the masses and turn your words into wealth. That's her motto. To date, she has 63 books, recorded 3 music CDs, and coached more than 250 to write and publish books and establishes their own business. She is the host of Live Your Best Life, which comes on Sundays at 10 a.m. EST on Envision Radio, www.envision-radio.com. If we were in music, we would be label mates, right?
Yes, most definitely.
I don't know what it is when you're on the same radio.
We're radio co-hosts.
Okay, we'll say that.
We'll say that, yeah.
Yes. And so I tell people all the time, if you want to stay connected to Julia Royston, she's got a link here, but here's the thing, you can Google her and find her anywhere. So if you want to get in touch with her, you can get her. So tonight let me say this before I toss you the mic. She is a current LLA board member. So she's been with us since maybe June or July. Mm-hmm. I think we all came in together, right? Mm-hmm. So I just want to present to some and introduce to others, Julia Royston.
Hi, well, thank you so much, Charlize. And I really appreciate this. It's always an honor and a privilege to share in my messy office. Now, before I start, I have to tell you, Eric, that I've been to Venice. And so when I got off the water taxi, and at that time, I'm like, no, I'm not doing a gondola. I'm not doing all that. But I think what was the most overwhelming to me was the smell, the pungent smell. And yeah. I was there with, I taught 10 years at Presentation Academy in Louisville. So I was the librarian and technology teacher there. And so we took a group of girls. It was that, 20 countries in 2 weeks, that whole thing. But Venice was on there and I was just super excited to go. And so when you're showing the pictures, I am right there. I mean, it was back in the 90s. So I can only imagine what's going on. That's been more than 20 years ago, because I've even been retired from teaching for the past 3 years. So that Venice story, it was struggling even back in the 90s, because I left Presentation in 1996. Mm-hmm. And so, no, in 2006. And so it was like, what that actually looks like and what that actually should be like is a horse of a different color. But I really enjoyed it. The of course, you know, being with Roman Catholics, you have to go through all the churches, etc., and you know the sidewalk cafes, etc. And it was beautiful for historical purposes. But you're right, the young would have a difficulty there. The my age, I'm 58 now, older, you know, we long for the history of it and the beauty of it, but it was struggling even then. So well, I just have one question. So when was give me the year again? Is that 2017 when you were there last? When were you there last?
I went in 2014 was the grant. So it's been a little bit since I've been back. The stuff was all written around then.
Yeah. So I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking, you know, it's been almost 10 years, no telling what has happened since COVID, etc. And
it's not been nice to it from what I've heard. And the high water was like the highest it's ever been,
right.
Like twice in the last 5 years or something like that. So
yeah,
it's worse. But
yeah. I mean, they were still holding on. So that's, you know, been, you know, 25, almost 30 years ago, 25 years ago when I was there. So but I would just, you know, love to hear everything about it, and love your images. I cannot draw stick people, so congratulations to you. And as a publisher, yes, I would love to have you on your team. You're providing your own images. Yes. There is nothing like trying to transpose, because I usually act as a project manager for that. It just makes it easier. And sometimes what the author sees and then what the graphic designer completes, it's like Greek. It didn't even compute, you know. As they say, he was drawing in Russian and you were thinking in Chinese. It just, you know, it doesn't work like that. But congratulations on all that you've done. So thank you, sir. I'm sorry, it's the show host in me that wants to ask questions like,
no, it's fine. This is great.
I was like, you know, I'll get to my books in a minute. You know, I'm really curious, you know. So did you spend more time in Italy, even outside of Venice, or was Venice your assignment and you came out?
I went to Venice. That was after I'd studied abroad. I was in Rome for
now that's my city right there.
I love Rome.
Oh baby, yes.
Yeah, the Venice thing was
Rome.
after
Rome was
that.
my spot. Yes.
I would go back to Rome now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, Rome and all that good stuff, because of the history of it and where we stayed, the hotel we walked out and there was a Colosseum, like literally. It was like we were across the street. So it was a beautiful thing. But thank you so much for, now you've taken me back 30 years and I'm thinking about, ooh, how can I get back to Italy? Venice, I might skip. I might pray for him as I walk by, but that's about it. But thanks so much. Yeah. So as you can tell, I love books. I love reading. I love everything about authors. I don't have to publish you to enjoy your writings and what you do. I love everything about the creative process. I have been addicted to books and reading since I was a small child. I'm the child that their parents, and I tell this everywhere I go, where the parents said, turn that light out, Jan. Go to sleep, you know, because I had the flashlight under the bed, under the covers. That was me. And my sister still teased me about it. Look what happened. See all that getting in trouble. It worked out for you. I said, yeah, I guess. Is there a compliment in there somewhere? I think so. So, but you know, reading and that creative process didn't really happen until much later. I had a teacher in 5th grade who did not like my handwriting. And so writing and handwriting, I didn't realize was really two separate things. So when she kept throwing the handwriting books on my desk and saying, I hate your handwriting, I thought she hated my writings. So I would get an F above in the handwriting over a small letter A. So, you know, teachers, be careful. I'm a retired teacher, so I'm very careful after that. But I really enjoyed the creative process. And it took my second master's at Spalding before I actually understood, no, you are a good writer. You can write. So I put that out as encouragement for everybody. So I don't stand up to Eric with in regards to poetry, but my very first book ever, I was going through, I tell people I was getting a divorce and a degree at the same time in 1994. And after that, I picked up a pen and one of those 80 count notebooks from the dollar store, and the rest is history. And this is what became of that. So I'm going to read one poem from it. It's just one, as you can tell, it's from a single woman and not from somebody who's been currently married, remarried happily for 15 years. So here's one of my favorites. Men, short ones, tall ones, black ones, white ones, Latin ones, Asian ones. A good, strong, and loving man, a sister wants one. Now, before you throw a stone and say, I don't really want one. I know you've been hurt by one or more than one, but who says that's the only one? Try again, but be careful and wait until the oven's done. You move too quick, fell too hard for the trick. Play hard to get. Make him work long and hard for it. Don't give away all your secrets just for a dinner, dancing, and a movie flick. Meet his parents, kinfolks, friends, and enemies too. Talk to his coworkers, children, and a good credit check you got to do. There are some good ones still waiting to be caught, but a gold digger will be left standing on the corner, left and not bought. Work on you. Make sure you're ready for a relationship new. Heal the wounds, dry the tears, and get rid of that baggage. You and your old relationships for any man. There's just too much luggage. Stop being so mean, hateful, and brash. Look at that current man in your mind, seeing another man in a flash. Remember, that was then, and this is now. Don't ruin your future with the past hanging around. You just never know before it's all through. What started as a friend may end in I do. Hi. Let's see. I've talked about men. Hold on, one more. So that's my first book. I think I'll keep going. Here we go. Don't quit. Don't quit. Don't even give into it. Not today. You can give way. The pressure is great. The power inside will accommodate. It's down in you, the stuff to see you through. The spirit is still dynamite. Put your dukes up. You still must fight. Fight the fear, oh so near. Fight the stress, such a mess. Fight the doubt, not an out. Fight the past, it didn't last. The season separates men from the boys and women from the girls. Fake from the real. Your life reveal. Living is still a big deal. The cover is pulled, and it is the same rule. Faithfulness will pay off. Keep going. Don't stop. Be encouraged because you will reach the top. Don't quit. So those two from my very first good book, A New Season in Word, Inspirations for Divine Living. Okay, so I'm going to move from poetry really quickly to a series that I'm really excited about. And if I can, Charlize, can I share my screen? I can always put up a PowerPoint really quickly. So this is Eric and I, and then that's for my first book of poetry. And then Terrence is Terrific is a series that I have kind of really been working on and really wanted to work on, especially for African American boys. The first book is finished, Terrence, and the second book is finished too. And then coming soon, hopefully in the spring, will be Terrence's team, which is his good friend Paris, which her locker is right next to her. He thinks she's cute, but they've got a bully they both have to fight. And so it's really kind of an ode to bullying, but also an ode to boys. I didn't have a brother, so here we go. So Terrence has a bully, and everybody has a nemesis. I had a few in my life. And so Terrence has two parents. He lives near the school where he goes. He walks to school and all that good stuff. And so his mother drops him off, which the bully teases him about all the time. But I'm going to read a section. It's the chapter is titled "The Forgotten Paper." Terrence and his mom were in her car, and while putting on the seatbelt, Miss Edmonds asked, "You got everything?" "Yes, my backpack is all packed. I even have a change of clothes for gym today." "Great, let's go." Margaret pulled the SUV up to the front door of the middle school, and Terrence exited in a hurry. There were always some kids standing nearby to be teased for being driven to school by your mother was something no one wanted. He had wanted to ride the school bus with the other kids to try to fit in, but the adjustment to middle school was hard enough. He needed as much time away from the eyes and judgment of others as possible. The 7:30 bell rang just as he walked into homeroom. "Good morning, everyone. Stand for the pledge," Miss Smith said. Once the pledge was completed and announcements were made, everyone was seated. "I realize that you shouldn't need a reminder, but open your backpacks, check your folders and assignment notebooks to make sure that you have everything for the next 7 classes. Terrence knew that he had everything because he packed it the night before, but checked his backpack just in case. His English paper was not in his backpack. Where could it be? He remembered that he looked at it one more time last night while sitting on the windowsill in his room. He must have left it there while mesmerized by the rain. How could he have forgotten that of all things? He had worked on it for 3 weeks. It was perfect. He thought, I only live 5 blocks away from home. I can run home, get the paper before first period class. Dad and Mom are not home, so they wouldn't notice. There was only one solution, and he raised his hand. Yes, Terrence. Miss Smith, may I go to the bathroom? Terrence, you were supposed to go to before you came to homeroom, but okay, just this once. Get the pass. Terrence was about to do something that he thought he would never do, but it was worth it. Or was it? Down the hall he ran, looking both ways as he headed down the stairs. The boys' bathroom was on the same floor as his classroom. If he could just get to the gym hallway and out the gym back door, it would be a shortcut to his house. Just like Mother said yesterday, it was raining cats and dogs again. But Terrence didn't care. He sprinted through the fence and cut through the neighbor's yard. As he ran, the key and those 2 hearts his parents gave him as a baby came out of the inside of his shirt. The light metal necklace made a small clinking noise as he ran. He arrived soaking wet, but safe to his house. The code to the garage worked perfectly. Even with wet shoes, he sprinted up the stairs, retrieved the paper, and let down the garage door. His smartwatch told him that he had exactly 10 minutes to make it back to school before the bell. He ran as hard as he could. There was a black cloud hovering over him as he arrived at the baseball field gate. As he opened the gate, thunder clashed and a bolt of lightning hit him directly at the key hanging from his neck. The electric shock of the lightning burned a hole through his shirt in the shape of the key and heart onto his chest. The power of the lightning knocked Terrence to the ground, and everything went black. Dun, dun, dun. So that is kind of the beginning of superpowers for Terrence. Terrence the Terrible, Terrence the Terrific, he's terrific, his mother says, and his father agrees. But the Terrible STEM Lab project. So I have poetry is only the first book that I've ever written. I write a lot of business books. I write a lot of how-to self-help. So you can get everything either at JuliaRoystonStore.com or Amazon, but I prefer you get it from JuliaRoystonStore.com because I can sign it and send it to you. So that's kind of out of my young adult lit. I also write other children's books, smaller, but this one is really was something that I'm proud of as far as fiction goes. So my next series, now I write also under a pen name, which is adult fiction. I do have a romance fiction series that's more faith-based, family friendly. But then I also write under Cadence Royal is my pen name. So, and I'll read a quick excerpt because I think I'm almost out of time. I took up some of my time interviewing Eric, which was a pleasure of mine. So this is book 3. This is the latest one from the series. Hank is book 1, Dwayne is book 2, and then Xavier is book 3. I just finished it. It took me 3 years, Eric, to finish this. Xavier, and there are the other covers so you can see them. So I wanted to write from a male point of view, which is strange because my first Christian fiction or faith-based fiction is from the women's point of view, which was easy to do. But for the men, it was 1 and 2, Hank and Dwayne rolled right out, but Xavier took a little bit of time. So hey, Xavier is kind of our mystery man. You can tell he's behind the glasses. He's multi-talented, multi-gifted, but he's got secrets. Xavier is Spanish. His parents were never married. All of the 3 gentlemen in my series, they have mother abandonment issues. But Xavier is the only one. Well, Dwayne knows who his father was. Hank does not know his mother or his father. So, I'm writing totally from a total separate place that I know nothing about because my parents were married 49 years until my father passed away in 2010. So I don't know anything about that. But we're set when Xavier is finally caught. And there's a whole lot to the Xavier, but he has still, he knows his mother. He knows who his father is. He doesn't have a great relationship with his father, but Xavier, and you got to get the book because Xavier lands in jail. He's arrested, but while he's in this jail cell, he has visions of his mother. Xavier, where are you, my love? Xavier heard his mother calling his name. He could see her long, flowing, curly black hair and smell the lavender in the air. The game hide and seek was always a favorite of his and his mother. Being an only child meant all the attention was on him. The love, time, and care of his mother was evident. She spoiled him rotten. From the sweet sounds of laughter, giggles, and play to the horrible screams of, "No, not my baby, don't take him, he's mine." The nightmare of that day haunted Xavier even unto this very day. He woke up in a sweat after seeing his mother in his dreams again. Somehow he must have fallen asleep on this cold, hard cot. The smell of urine still in the toilet, too close for comfort. "Get up, you got a visitor. Some high-powered lawyer here to see you," the guard said. Xavier slowly cleared his eyes and rose up off the cot. He followed the guard down a long hallway. The lock snapped loudly and the door suddenly opened. It wasn't a high-powered lawyer at all. "How are they treating you, Brandon?" Millis asked. "Why are you here? Is it a holiday or something? That's the only time I used to see you, holidays back in Lexington." "I must not have checked the calendar." Xavier rolled his eyes as he replied, looking at a wrist with no watch still standing at the closed door. "Sit down and shut up," Brandon said. Xavier remembered all too well those staged holiday gatherings with everyone on the land coming to the big White House for dinner. The food was good because Miss Dorothy, the black maid and cook, did all the cooking and spent more time with the Millers than she did with her own family. The music was good. The conversation was stiff, as were the handshakes with those small bonuses that were given out before they headed back a half-mile down the road to the small White House. "How did you know I was here?" Xavier asked, quickly coming out of his daydream. "I've always got connections, and I always will. They let me know everything, even out of state. I can't believe you would have the nerve to come here. They could keep you here just as much as they can keep me here. Don't worry, son. Don't you call me that. You never treated me like a son, and you know it," Xavier whispered through clenched teeth. "You're right, but I'm here now." "For what?" "To get you out of here. Now you want to help me? I've been on my own, educated and taking care of myself since I ran away at 18. You want to help me now? Why?" "You know too much," was the answer he was given. "And I haven't talked before. Why do you think that will change now? They could lock you away for a very long time and force you to talk. You think so?" "I know so." The real lawyers will be here tomorrow to bail you out, but you can't go back to your apartment now. It's potential evidence for the case they are forming against you. I've got an apartment already set up and paid for when you get out. Thanks, but just get me out of here, and I'll get my own place, pay my own bills, and as I have for 20 years. I don't need you to pay any bills for me. Suit yourself. Brandon stood, yelled for the guard. The guard was slow in coming, so he yelled again. One day you're not going to be able to yell for a guard and get out. Not until hell freezes over, Brandon said. I think it's starting to get chilly right now. You threatening me? No, just saying. So that's a small excerpt from Xavier. I trust that you enjoy that. And I'm going to turn it back over to you. Hey, Eric. I'll stop sharing.
I love that.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Julia. That was awesome. I didn't know that you could write that dialogue like that. I think a lot of people struggle with dialogue.
Well, and that's true. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much. Well, one of the things is, and I know Eric, even writing prose and fiction or whatever, I hear voices in my head. And I don't know if in most fiction writers, when I'm even coaching them, I tell them have the characters started talking yet. Because that's what happened. I had moved away and started writing some other things for clients, and then Xavier started talking. And so when I start hearing the conversation in my head, I have to get them down. So whether I talk them into my phone or I'm out of bed at 3 o'clock in the morning, I know that it's time. So when you're writing fiction like that, you really have to embed into the character, because I needed to close out the series before I moved on to the next. But the characters will help you if you have, just as a sidebar and a tip, when you're writing fiction, you need a profile. Eric, you can dispute it if you like, but you really need a profile. You need to know who they are, what they eat, where they sleep, where would they live, what would they do? Do they swim? Are they afraid of heights? Are they wear casual clothes? Are they a designer kind of people? Are they laid back, just jeans and t-shirt? You really need to know do they cook? Do they not want to cook? Do they, So basically having profiles of your characters really helps me, because what Xavier would do and what Dwayne and Hank would do is not the same thing. Mm-hmm. Totally different. So
yeah, it's totally, I totally agree. I don't dispute that at all. Yeah, I've been writing this book that's mostly prose for a while. It just kind of sits on the back burner until I start hearing one of the characters talking to me, because that happens. I'll leave it for a while, like you said, and then one of them will start chatting. And then I have to write it down because they're taking up too much space in my head.
Yeah.
And I feel like when they start talking, when I know them well enough.
Yes.
Once I've answered some of those questions about like what kind of food they're afraid of, then I can start writing them, because they talk.
Right. Because they'll tell you exactly what, and even writing from the male point of view, I had to stop assuming that, I didn't have brothers, but I had to stop assuming that men don't have emotions, that they may not sit up and do a lot of crying, but they do feel, they do have pain, they do experience loss, they do, they just may express it differently. Women, we like to curl up and eat chocolate and Haagen-Dazs ice cream and the whole 9 yards, but they do have a way of expressing themselves. Xavier just swims laps. He swims. So he's got an Olympic-sized pool in his very elaborate home that is more like Fort Knox than anything else. But he does have reminiscent of things that he really, really enjoys. Dwayne is kind of a drifter. Hank is a homebody because the love of his life, they have twins. So he has found, his family that he never really had. And so he's just in third heaven, but Dwayne always gets him involved, and now they're together in Xavier. And I'm looking for them to have something else to fight and something else to attack as a team together with all 6 of them. So I'm really excited about that and what that can do. But you're right. The dialogue does come when you know them and when you're talking to them. And so Yeah.
Did I hear a shout out to Lexington in that book?
Oh yeah, Lexington is in here. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just
So,
making sure, you know.
So one of the things, yeah, huge shout out to Lexington because, well, I went to UK, so go Cats. And my sister went to UK, go Cats. But Lexington, Xavier's dad is like a multi-billion-dollar, had a horse farm. And so that's what kind of their biggest thing, but they're kind of involved in human trafficking. So I kind of wove that story in that too as well. But yeah, there's a huge shout out to Lexington, and the love of his life is there too as well. Her family is still in Lexington. So yeah, it's a huge shout out to Lexington.
All right. I heard my town. That's why I thought I heard my town.
Yeah.
Even though, you know, you're on the other side of the state.
Yes.
The other side.
Yeah, I'm in the middle, but you know, I've always had very close relations in Lexington, especially the year I was there in grad school. But you know, always cutting through. You know, I was there not too long ago, headed to Charlotte, so I always have to wave at everything when I roll through Lexington, headed east. So it's always one of my second homes, one of my many second homes. So
great. Well, this is the end of our November InKY. I thank you all so much. Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Eric, so much for coming on tonight and reading from your works. I do want to remind people all the time that if you want to become a member, if you want to donate to LLA, you can always go to our homepage at www.louisvilleliteraryarts.org. Follow us on all social media at Louisville Literary Arts. And if you even want to email me, you can email me, Charlize@LouisvilleLiteraryArts.org. And I promise I will respond. Maybe not the same day, but I'll get around to it.
Oh no, she responds. I promise.
I do. I respond.
She responds. She does.
Yeah.
She definitely does.
And I appreciate you all so much for coming on tonight. And we will be back next month for our December InKY. So stay tuned because all of our details will be on our social media. They'll be on our web page. And if you sign up for our email list, you will get it in our newsletter. So we've got a lot of things coming. So thank you all for joining us tonight. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure, Eric. Oh, wow.
It's great.
I'm honored. It's great.